In the last episode, we talked about the brain's fuel. Today, we talk about the brain's bricks, what this organ is physically constructed from. And I'm going to tell you something that contradicts 30 years of dietary messaging, backed by the anatomy of your own head. Your brain is roughly 2% of your body weight, and it contains more than a quarter of all the cholesterol in your entire body. For an organ we've spent a generation being told to protect from cholesterol, that is a staggering number. It should make you stop and ask, what is all that cholesterol doing up there? The answer is, it's holding your mind together. Literally. I'm Dr. Padda, and this is the second pillar of brain terrain, structure. Two structures decide how powerful your brain is, and both are built from fat and cholesterol. The first is myelin, the fatty white insulation wrapped around the wiring of your brain. Myelin is why a signal can rocket down a nerve instead of leaking away. More myelin, faster thought, tighter coordination, sharper recall, and cholesterol is the rate-limiting ingredient for making it. Not one ingredient among many, the bottleneck. Run low on cholesterol in the brain, and myelin production slows. The second is the synapse, the connection point where one brain cell talks to another. Your intelligence, your memory, your ability to learn lives in the density and quality of these connections. And synapse formation, too, depends on cholesterol. Lower the cholesterol available to the brain, and you get fewer synapses, fewer connections, and impaired growth of that critical myelin insulation. So when we talk about cholesterol in the brain, we are not talking about a villain clogging a pipe. We are talking about the single most abundant structural material of human thought. Now, at this point, a reasonable person says, but cholesterol causes heart disease. I've been told my whole life to drive it down. Set aside the cardiovascular debate for a moment. We can have that another day, because there is one anatomical fact that makes the brain a completely separate conversation, and almost no one is told about it. Your brain does not borrow cholesterol from your bloodstream. It makes its own on-site behind a wall called the blood-brain barrier, and that cholesterol does not cross back out into your blood. The cholesterol your brain manufactures to build myelin and synapses is sealed off from the cholesterol circulating in your arteries. They are two separate economies. Sit with the implication. Whatever you believe about cholesterol in your arteries, whether it helps cause heart disease or not, has nothing to do with the cholesterol your brain makes for itself. They don't mix, so anything that reaches across that barrier and interferes with the brain's own cholesterol production isn't touching your heart risk at all. It's only touching your brain. I need to be very careful and very clear here because this is where responsible medicine matters most. I am about to discuss a class of medications taken by tens of millions of people. Nothing I say is an instruction to stop taking anything. If you're on one of these drugs, there may be excellent reasons you are. What I'm giving you is the knowledge to have an informed conversation with the physician who prescribed it. The medications are statins, the most prescribed cholesterol-lowering drugs in the world. Statins work by shutting down an enzyme your body uses to make cholesterol. In the bloodstream, that's the intended effect. But some statins are fat-soluble, lipophilic, and fat-soluble statins can cross the blood-brain barrier. Once across, they do inside the brain exactly what they do in the liver. They blunt cholesterol synthesis. Except in the brain, cholesterol synthesis isn't a target, it's construction. Slowing it means potentially slowing the very process that maintains myelin and synapses, the physical substrate of memory and cognition. This is what clinicians mean when they use the word iatrogenic, harm that is physician or medication caused, however unintended. This is not a fringe concern. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration requires a warning on statin labels, noting potential effects on memory and cognition, reports of memory loss and confusion that, notably, often reverse when the drug is stopped. That word, reversible, is the key that unlocks the next piece of evidence. In 2012, researchers ran a small but elegant study. They took 18 patients who had Alzheimer's disease and were on statins. First, they measured cognition. Then they stopped the statin and changed nothing else. 6 weeks later, they measured cognition again. Cognition improved measurably on a standard cognitive scale across the group. Then they did the thing that turns an observation into evidence. They rechallenged, put the patients back on the statin, and retested 6 weeks later. The cognitive scores fell again by about the same amount. Off the drug, better. back on the drug, worse. A reversible, repeatable effect on cognition in patients who already had Alzheimer's disease. Now, the honesty that earns your trust. This was 18 people. It was a pilot study, open label, not a large randomized trial. It does not prove statins cause dementia, and it absolutely does not mean statins are wrong for everyone. For many people at high cardiovascular risk, they are genuinely protective. What it does do is puncture the idea that cholesterol is simply universally bad, and it aligns perfectly with everything the anatomy already told us. The brain is built from cholesterol, and a drug that crosses into the brain and slows cholesterol production can slow the brain. The point of this episode is not throw away your medication. The point is, if you or someone you love has cognitive decline and is on a fat-soluble statin, that is a conversation worth having with your physician, armed now with the anatomy and the evidence. Let me widen the lens, because cholesterol is not the only construction material we've been taught to fear. The brain is assembled from a specific set of raw materials, and the richest sources of nearly all of them are animal foods. Cholesterol and saturated fat form structural components of every cell membrane. The brain's cell membranes, its signaling machinery, its insulation, this is fat architecture. When the dietary message becomes cut the fat, cut the cholesterol, cut the animal foods, we are not just trimming a food group. We are potentially cutting the supply of the bricks the brain is made from. And here's where I'll hand you to the next episode, because structure isn't only about the bulk materials, the cholesterol and fat. It's also about a set of micronutrients that act like the master switches and fine tools of brain construction and repair. Get those wrong, even slightly, even within so-called normal ranges, and the brain will quietly shrink, starting astonishingly before birth. Here's what I want you to take from today. Your brain is not something to be defended from fat and cholesterol. Your brain is made of them. And the question for anyone watching a loved one slip or feeling their own edge dull is whether the raw materials are getting where they need to go, and whether anything is standing in the way. At Regan.md, when we evaluate a brain in decline, we look at the whole supply chain, including a careful physician-to-physician review of the medications that might be crossing into the brain and quietly slowing its repair. Never a unilateral change, always an informed one. If you want the full version of what I just covered, the actual studies, the mechanisms, and where the evidence is genuinely strong versus where it's still preliminary, I wrote it all down. It's a book called The Starved Brain, and the link is below. Every claim in it is referenced, so you don't have to take my word for anything.